creativity, and everything in between.
Welcome to A Band Apart with Ekko and Sidetrack.
Welcome back.
Jonathan's just told a story that will be edited out of the podcast, but you needn't mind because we've got some great stuff coming up.
And what was?
I feel like we're on the news, like we know specifically what we're talking about.
Back with you.
Back to you, Rick.
But I summarize the story. It's not that you like control; it's that you don't like letting go.
Yeah,
it's essentially what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So I will get pegged this weekend.
You also made a comment. You also made a comment about changing color.
Yeah.
And changing state. Like when the body changes state, it's a very specific thing. Like when you are extremely hungover or extremely drunk or heavily affected by drugs or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had friends in the past that you literally look at them and you're like, you've gone a weird shade of green, and they're like,
Do you remember when we were in New Zealand? I think it was with the tour with Dan.
Yes. No, it was Mardi Gras Man.
Mardi Gras. Okay, so
Mardi Gras Man. Check him out. New show on Netflix.
Mardi Gras. So we're with
Freddie,
Rob.
Yeah. Lee Matthews.
Jason Status. Jake was there.
Jason Status wasn't in the van. Jason Status was.
No. It was at the airport. It was in the
It was on the drive from.
No. It was in the airport because remember we were going through security.
No, it was on the drive.
You started to go green.
No, the whole time I was feeling really bad from Owakani to Wellington.
Really?
Yeah.
I felt like it was just at the airport that we visibly saw you go green.
Yeah, I needed food.
Yeah.
And a green juice.
It's amazing that the body changes like color.
Yeah.
Like you went a different color.
I was holding in poison.
Yeah.
I needed to go to the toilet. I needed some juice. I needed just some sugar.
Yeah, that's fucked up. And your body temperature, like especially when you're hungover. This is after a festival, not sleeping particularly well for the whole tour. And
yeah.
So you're hungover, no sleep, being forced to travel.
Yes.
Not being able to lie down, probably not having enough water, not enough food. And your body, like, I'm sure you got like the temperature rush as well. So your body gets real hot.
Constantly. If it was up to me, I would have gotten out of the car.
Yeah. And you just want like a flannelette on your face.
I want to ride on the roof rack so I could get breeze.
Yeah. Breeze is important.
And I was in the back as well. The backpack.
Yeah. Hot.
Yeah. Hot.
Stifling.
Hot in the backpack.
No, that's not good. It's not a good place to be, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You wanted to talk about time dilation.
Yeah, let's make a little pivot from hot in the backpack to time dilation. I've experienced some moments of time dilation in my life, but I haven't thought about them. You don't really think about them when you're doing them. But I've had a few recently, which has made me incredibly aware. And what I mean by time dilation is that time seems to kind of slow down to allow more things to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I once had a very wise friend of mine say to me, you can't ever stop time, but somehow you are able to pull it like little pools off a river. And I've had a few moments like that in the past, and I've had two this week where Holly and I have managed to...
Hey, Holly.
Hey, Holly. Just managed to do a lot of stuff in what appears to be a short amount of time.
Mm.
So... we've been going to bed super early this week, like being absolutely knackered at like 9:30.
It's funny because to most people,
that's probably
to regular people,
normal.
That's maybe late.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's sorry.
I'm not. I mean,
we're at 11 o'clock. We're at 11 o'clock, 11:30,
and beyond. Like when we were younger, like we drink coffee in the studio at 9 o'clock. It's like there's my second coffee.
Yeah.
But so going to bed kind of early, 9:30ish, and getting up earlier. So we are experiencing the whole time of awakenedness. It's not like we're waking up late and going to bed early.
Yeah.
But so we've been at our nights. So we'll get together at like 5:30. We'll do some stuff, and then we'll be in bed 4 hours later. Last night, I came home at 5:30 from the gym, 6 o'clock, and I was like, "Hey, let's. What do you want to do for dinner?" And she's like, "I really want these gem lettuce salad from Besk," and our mate Justin messaged us and he said, "What are you doing? Do you want to go for a drink?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's all meet at Besk." And we went, and 3 hours later we were home, and then we proceeded to watch the rest of All Quiet on the Western Front, which we can talk about after this because it's an excellent movie.
Sure.
And then it was like 11:30 when we got into bed.
And you feel like you did so much.
Yeah, and like
You know
we had full dinner at Besk with Justin. Then other people, the Lee Matthews guys, or Tom from Lee Matthews and Connor from Sly Chaos was there.
Oh, you saw them?
Yeah, and they were at Besk, so we just moved tables and got another bottle of wine and had drinks with them and chatted to Fenella and Molly and stuff like that.
I didn't know you saw them.
Yeah, and it was great. And so it was like all these little steps of the night.
Where was my invitation? Just kidding. I was having something else. Having someone else. Eating somewhere else.
Your hole was in what dilation process?
Half roast chicken.
Whoa, that's an interesting answer to the question. But so we did all these things, and it felt like as long as previous nights had.
Mm.
But you know, when we were in bed at 11:30 or 12 o'clock by the time we went to sleep, yeah, it's like, whoa, we achieved a lot.
Do you know what that is?
Time dilation.
It's less about time dilation, and it's more about you started doing something at 6 p.m. or earlier than an hour later than where you usually would. So if you make the decision to go out for dinner at 7 p.m.
Like we did last night.
Oh.
Yeah, we didn't get there till 7. It's not like
No,
we were
but
there at 5.
but you made the decision to go for dinner at 6 or 6:30 rather than
Sure.
so instead of having dinner at 8,
Yep.
you did it at 7. So if you go 3 hours for dinner, 7 till 10, you can get home and still, watch a movie. Whereas 8 till 11, you're probably not going to start a movie at 11.
No, I completely.
And it's like the earlier you start things, the more it feels like you have more time.
Yes, that is true. But also, the fear and time dilation isn't literally time slowing down. What it is the way it feels. And I think it has something to do with presence. And
yeah, absolutely.
like doing something that's more engaging rather than just doing something that's a little bit more passive.
Yeah. And that has to do with being on your phone, being in company that doesn't make you want to look at your phone, really doing something you actually want to do and be present in rather than doing something you're kind of half.
I don't think it has all to do with your phone.
No, I'm not saying all to do. I'm saying that has a factor because you want to be with Justin, you want to go out for drinks, you want to see these people, you're doing something interesting.
When I'm at home, I'm on my phone sometimes, but I'm also with my lover.
But you might be doing a more passive thing.
We were doing the dishes or cleaning up after a meal that we've just prepared or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found it quite interesting, and there are ways to definitely cultivate that, and I'm going to do some more research on that. And I think it is presence, yes, like you said, be off your phone, but also be active and with who you're with rather than off somewhere else. And I think it'll be interesting tonight as we go to Rome, which is Metro City. It'll be interesting to go there and see how that feels time-wise because it starts early, like you said, and there's things to make us present. But there's also lots of input, so it'll be like happening quite quickly, potentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something to consider. I thought it was, something that happened to me that I thought, have you ever experienced time dilation?
Yeah. And it's always when I'm doing... It's always about presence. I'd had it when I was doing pottery. I had it when I was in the studio last Friday at night. I had it...
1 hour feels like 3 hours.
No.
3 hours feels like 1 hour.
3 hours feels like 1 hour.
1 hour through. My God.
Oh, then pottery...
It does work the other way around.
And then pottery just didn't feel like there was time. It didn't feel like a certain amount of time or...
when you're on the wheel, time stops. You should get a shirt that says
When you're on the wheel, time stops. Yeah. Goes to pottery once. Buys a fucking pottery wheel.
Wheel it up.
That's a good for a rewind or a wheel wind. Yeah, I just didn't feel time then.
You didn't wheel time.
I didn't feel time at pottery.
Ah.
In the studio, yeah, sometimes it feels like an hour's 3 hours or vice versa.
That's tied to flow state as well.
Yeah.
Stephen Kotler would kind of say that
Yeah.
a
Which is-
byproduct of flow state is time dilation.
Yes. Which is presence. I think just being super present.
And also doing something, flow state is more likely to be achieved if something's a little bit risky.
Yeah.
So there's an element of you haven't done it before. It's not common that you'll hit flow state while you're brushing your teeth.
No. And because you have to be focused. Like with pottery, for instance, I'm learning a new skill and it is so much about the application of pressure through one's fingers.
Did you say fingers?
Yes.
Fingers.
5 things. Make a fist.
I think there's a de-esser on your voice.
So, like you're thinking about pressure, you're thinking about, you're so focused on that tiny little action that you can't be present anywhere else. That's what I loved about it so much.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Ghost?
Yeah.
I watched Ghost for the first time the other night.
It's a great movie.
It is. It's that pottery scene is nowhere near as iconic as what people would make it out to be. It is kind of iconic. But it's crazy that by modern standards, it's not. It's also a crazy movie because you would have it believe it's a love story. And it kind of is. But it's more about a guy just randomly doing like money laundering for the mafia, and then kind of getting caught by his friend, and then creating a plot to kill him. Spoiler alert.
I don't think I remember it that well. All I remember is I was surprised at how early on in the film he dies, and most of what I remember is like him trying to convince Whoopi Goldberg, and Whoopi Goldberg being like the shyster medium.
Yeah.
Medium, and then she's like...
She's hilarious in it.
Whoopi Goldberg is hilarious.
Yeah. But it's, Holly, it's like a family favorite of the Barkers, to the point where her father quotes things.
I haven't seen it in a while.
But the pottery scene, I was like, this is going to be like, this is the scene. And I was like, oh, it's like not that iconic. And Holly remembers watching it when she was younger and being like, oh no, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, like, because she knew that, she liked the pottery scene, but then she knew that the next scene was them, like, kind of like starting to become seductive.
Yeah.
And that, watching that with your parents is just like, oh man, it's just uncomfortable when you're like a kid.
I remember watching, and the only reason she let me watch it was because she watched it with me. But I wanted to watch Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
And so Mum was like, all right.
How old were you?
Somewhere between 13 and 16. And there's obviously a scene where a guy gets raped or about to be raped. And there's like sex scenes in it and references to like blowjobs. I can handle sex references with your parents, but when it gets to like oral sex or like something a bit more French, I think that like it's a bit more, I don't know, it gets realer. But we watched that, and I remember being like,
God damn it, I've got a weird boner.
like uncomfortable
Yeah.
because I was watching it with Mum.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Sex scenes with family. It's not the best way to enjoy a film.
But it would be what the internet tells us is hot. With all its, perversion towards stepsister, stepmom,
Oh, yeah.
stepfather.
Because like the most popular porn searches are all about incest.
But it's not incest because they're always step. That's the key. It's like that's the key.
It's no blood relation.
No, and it's like that girl's 18 years old. This man just pivoted into her life because they're dating. He's dating.
That's
her
like
mum.
that's a real forbidden. Oh yeah, it's the forbidden fruit. That's like the ultimate. It's the closest you can get to someone without them being your family, but also there being like a kind of dynamic there that's like, should I, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's strange.
Jonathan, guess what I was doing 3 years ago?
What were you doing 3 years ago?
I was in Japan.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got reminded about it the other day when Carl Thomas, aka Shock One, got a little iPhone
Notification?
notification. You know, an iPhone will make a little movie from some photos.
Yeah.
He got 3-year anniversary, and it was a photo of a bunch of us in Japan snowboarding, and it was a great time. But it was also a riotous time because it was one of the last times I travelled, or it was the last time I travelled overseas for a very long time because of COVID. And I remember it happening and being like, are we allowed to do this? Is this right? It's like, it was a pretty crazy opportunity I had. And then, I wore a mask on the plane and all sorts of stuff.
Because you guys were going over for Snow Machine?
Yeah, festival was had over there. And it was kind of bonkers, and it just made me remember, like, wow, that was 3 years ago.
You talk about time dilation.
Yeah, and a lot's happened in 3 years.
Yeah. And that was like that's the beginning of COVID.
Yep.
I think we're at the 1st of March, or like we've just gone into March.
Yep.
So it's like 2 weeks. The 2-week anniversary, in 2 weeks will be the first time I got COVID.
Yeah.
Basically. So it'll be 3 years from the beginning.
Yeah.
And yeah, you talk about time dilation. That's insane. It doesn't feel like it's been 3 years. It feels like it's been...
How long?
A lot longer.
A lot longer.
Yeah. I guess it feels like... depending on what mood I'm in, it feels like either yesterday or it feels like 10 years ago. It's almost like time to me.
Depending on what mood I'm in. I'm stoked. Yesterday or 10 years ago.
Like it's like an elastic band.
Yeah.
So I can go, so like hanging out, I went for drinks with my friend Sally last night.
Shout out to Sally.
And it felt like it hadn't been that long since we've seen each other. And we're trying to figure out when the last time it would have been.
Yes.
That would have been maybe 5 or 6 years. But it didn't feel like that. And then we were talking about...
pass between friends. Sure.
And we were talking about work and that type of stuff because we used to work together. And that felt like it was 30 years ago. But then I can, if I think back and think about something in London in 2020.
That could be like 60 years ago.
Or that could be like a different time.
Or a different dimension.
Or but then I talk to Jim and Shawnee and it's like, I've just left London yesterday. Like it's constantly stretching for me and changing depending on
how much you rub it?
I don't know. It's changed. It's completely random, and it changes as well depending on even if I think back to the same scenario. It's not always going to feel like the same amount of distance.
Do you think that's one of the reasons you occasionally have difficulties with time?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe it's my relationship with time.
You're very optimistic sometimes about what you can fit in, but then maybe you tend to be optimistic. I mean, this goes for almost everyone. You underestimate what you can achieve. You overestimate what you can achieve in a week and underestimate what you could achieve in a year. And I would say that rings true for the fact that COVID basically started 3 years ago. We've come a long way since then.
Yeah. Sure. I think I overestimate what I can do, but then I'm always pleased with what I can get in. Like, this morning, for instance, I was feeling hungover this morning, so I struggled to get started. But then in the time between coming to the studio and leaving home, I saw Raya, picked up a mic, got breakfast, saw Dad, spoke to Mum, picked up a vinyl shelf, talked to Dad about sausages and how they can sometimes make us shit ourselves.
Care to elaborate on that, or is it pretty?
We've just been when I go back home and eat sausages and meat, and it's just always the next day. I've always just it doesn't agree with me. But we talked about that up front for like nearly 10 minutes. But I look back and go, okay, cool. I was 20 minutes late to the studio than I said I would, but I got to do
a little bit more than that.
I got to do these things. I got to see Raya. I got to.
But you can plan to do those things and still be on time.
Yeah, but I wasn't planning to do those things. That's the thing.
But you were planning to do those things.
Yeah, but I wasn't planning to speak to Raya for so long.
Oh, so that's what I mean.
But you
just change your plans over time.
Yeah.
Your plans are very elastic.
Yeah.
Therefore, time becomes more elastic, or at least your perception of time becomes more elastic.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah.
So when you remember the past, what's a memory that seems very distant, that is not so very distant? Does your time in London living, which was,
I'd say Rhythm and Vines, New Zealand at New Year's.
Yeah.
That was 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That feels way further away.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that a little bit. It feels like a lot of stuff has happened.
And then
When I saw Tom and Molly and Fenella last night, I was like, "Well, yeah, we just saw you guys like 60 days ago, but it does feel like a while."
But then I think of my mind just went to playing at Freddie's album launch in London,
Yes.
which was last year in July. That feels ages ago. And it's almost like if I sit with it, London last year feels longer ago than London when I left in 2021.
Interesting. Do you think some of it has to do with like more memorable moments from last year, so they seem a little bit further away?
I'm not
like,
too sure.
It's almost as though the time is a piece of wood, and the more memorable the moment, the deeper the groove is cut into the wood. And as you run your fingers along the piece of wood, the deep grooves are the ones you feel. And the lighter ones, where there's not as memorable moments, you don't. But somehow the deeper ones feel further away.
Yeah, potentially.
I think I've just mixed that whole thing up.
But my mind is a block of wood and it's grooved. I think that's what we can take from it. Yeah, I mean, that could be it. I think it's also, there's a multitude of factors. When was the last time you thought I think the other thing is when the last time you thought about it was.
Yeah, it's
because apparently they say that sometimes with memories, you're not remembering the actual memory, you're remembering the last time you thought about the memory. So if I haven't thought about
remember that time we did that thing.
I'll never forget it. So you might not remember a person or a place or even have any idea of thinking about that person. I've got friends that I don't talk to that often, but as soon as we see each other, it's like no time at all. And it's that just because I've put them into a
timeless cube.
A timeless cube, and then they come back into your life, and you're like, oh, cool, you're back.
Okay. You've never been to Japan. That's where this conversation started. It is like being shot out of a cannon into a pinball machine, and I'd like to go, and Holly would like to go again. Both of our experiences had amazing parts, but they also had some like parts that were a little bit more difficult.
Yeah,
and we'd like to do it together to like kind of rewrite some of our Japan story.
That's a great thing to do.
Yeah,
with a partner.
Yeah, I think you'd really like Japan. It's intense.
I think I would really like Japan too. I think I would really like to just spend more time in the Japanese culture. It's a fascinating culture, and I don't really know much about it.
Have you had any friends that go there?
Yeah, like Carl, Jaden, Eric and Sarah go there a lot. They actually just got back from there.
Oh.
And really, most of what I know about Japan is obviously just like through pop culture and whatever, or reading Murakami books.
Yeah.
And I love Murakami
Yep.
and how he writes, and kind of, I guess you get inside the mind of characters that are existing in, various places in Japan, and learn a bit more about the culture and how they think and express themselves a bit more. And it is super fascinating. I didn't know, did you say this to me, or did someone at work say this to me? Japan was closed off to the world pre-1900. Like they
That wasn't me.
were very, apparently, like, I don't know if it was anti-West as much as more, oh, you guys are just doing your thing, we're doing our thing over here. We're not particularly interested. They were very forward-facing.
Maybe.
Which I think probably is probably why they're such a different culture to other Asian countries and other Western countries.
I mean, China was very shut off as well, I imagine.
Yeah.
I suppose China would have traded. I'm way out of my depth. I don't know. But yeah, maybe Japan was quite shut off to the Western world.
Yeah. I think it was more so like I said, it was just like that kind of stuff doesn't interest. It was like an inward facing thing rather than an outward facing thing, because they're such an old country. But yeah, I'm interested to go to Japan and would love to accompany you and Holly to Japan if you would have me.
Consider it a date.
Well, let's go.
Japanese food is really interesting, like the stuff you can buy in just the shops there.
Yeah.
And the lollies are amazing, and just the wild flavors, and like some of their snacks, and how I love trying new snacks and
Salty crunch.
Yeah, salty crunch, but also like sweet stuff over there, like
Sweet and hard.
Yeah, fruit flavored little gums and little chewy things and stuff like that. It's quite exotic. Sweets like that kind of get me going, and I love trying them. And I don't know if America has very sugary sweets.
Yeah.
Lots of them, but they all kind of taste in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Whereas Japan has lots of like exotic little flavors.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, I didn't even know that I liked the taste of sweet Japanese plum, or I don't like the taste of that thing that sounds really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exotic place. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to go. I think my next trip I would like to be to an Asian country.
Yeah.
Because I haven't really spent barely any time in Asia. I mean, I've been to Indonesia a couple of times, but I don't particularly think that's a pretty
Entry-level.
shallow entry level thing to do just to go to Bali.
Its own thing though. Yeah, hopefully we have the opportunity to go to Japan and maybe play some drum and bass.
I'd love to play some drum and bass in Japan.
Yeah, I went to a really amazing club beginning. Shout out to Sacco and the team out there. Yeah, it's really cool. And met a lot of like cool like dubstep dudes as well. Dubstep future bass kind of guys.
Sick.
Yeah. Last week we talked about something to finish off each podcast.
Yes.
Have you thought about what that thing is?
No. I haven't. Have you?
Not really. I thought maybe like we could do a game, or we could do a what have I learned this week, maybe, or
a fun factoid.
a fun fact. Yeah.
I think maybe it's a funny story. But again, like we will talk about that in the podcast if it comes up. I don't know. I'll think on it more. I do want to say have written morning pages.
Oh yes, let's get an update on morning pages every day.
No. I haven't every day.
Okay.
And in the morning, only once.
Oh,
But I have written 5 days
that's good.
out of the 7.
That's good.
The least amount I wrote was a paragraph. The most I wrote was 3 pages.
Nice.
How
are you finding it?
Yeah. Good.
That's a shit adjective.
I know writing is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm finding it helpful. I haven't sat down and, I was talking about last week is my relationship with the album and how that's going. I haven't purposely sat down with that in mind, but that has come up a couple of times. But I haven't sat down, again, like purposely been like, this is where I'm getting out all my feelings about the album, finishing the album rather.
Yep.
But yeah, I found it helpful. I think what's interesting is the resistance to it.
Mm.
And it's the same resistance I've had with exercise in the past or, learning any new habit.
Procrastination.
Yeah. And you just, the way I think I've dealt with it this week is being like, you don't have to write 3 pages. Just write a sentence. Just write one. Just write something.
Start.
Just do a little bit of it.
Some of my morning pages would often start with, I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
I've got nothing to say. I've just got to keep writing because it tells you, you got nothing to say. Did you read what Julia Cameron said about morning pages?
No, I haven't gone back and read any part of any part of The Artist's Way again.
You should just read.
I've read that bit, but
yeah, it's on the internet. You could. It's probably like 4 paragraphs.
I should go back and do that this week.
Yeah, you should. You'll find it helpful.
Yeah,
and in the morning, I think it helps particularly to clear the way for your day.
Yeah, definitely. You can't. It's like clearing out your drawer.
Yes.
Or vacuuming your car, or clearing out something before you start.
Yes, good point.
All right, buddy. Let's wind this up. I love you. Next week we'll have a wind-up question or a wind-up game or some sort of thing.
Yep.
I'll speak to you later.
You will. Love you, buddy.
Love you, buddy. Bye. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. We are Ekko and Sidetrack on all social media. We've recently updated our YouTube. Go and give that a subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the latest video podcasts. And follow us on Spotify too so you can keep up to date with all our latest music releases. Big up.